Good evening. Tonight we will be listening to a live debate held on the use of censorship in public institutions, in particular public schools. Our students, Johnny Freedom and Susie Censure, have been selected from the student body to participate in tonight's event. Let's now go live to the auditorium.
I would like to thank each of you for coming tonight for this debate on the censorship of content within public schools. As many are aware, the topic of censorship in schools has been intensely debated for many years, truly reaching a height during the mid-20th century. The argument for the protection of basic rights of access to material is certainly alive and well in today's society, and we hope to have a thorough debate tonight. On my left is Susie Censure, and on my right, we have Johnny Freedom. So, be it resolved that schools have a need to censor content for the protection of children. Susie, you are arguing for this. Your opening remarks, please.
Schools are places of learning. This is true. However, as a public institution, we have a responsibility to ensure that children are guided in a way that allows students to grow in ways that are congruent with our society. There is so much presented today, in pen and in media, that may be offensive, or even infuriating to the public, that for the safety of our children it would be best to protect them until they reach a more appropriate age to judge for themselves.
So Susie, you are arguing that the value of censorship in schools is to protect students from materials that they may not be able to digest in their early years.
More or less, yes.
Johnny, you are arguing against the censorship of material in schools. Your opening remarks, please.
According to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which in 1990 was ratified by the Canadian federal government, states that, and I quote, "It is the responsibility of libraries to guarantee and facilitate access to all expressions of knowledge and intellectual activity, including those which some elements of society may consider to be unconventional, unpopular or unacceptable. It is the responsibility of libraries to guarantee the right of free expression by making available all the libraries, public facilities and services to all individuals and groups who need them. Libraries should resist all efforts to limit the exercise of these responsibilities while recognizing the right of criticism by individuals and groups." End of quote. I agree with my compatriot that schools are places of learning, and that much of what schools aim to do is socialize students to standard norms within our society and communities. However, I believe that schools are safe places, where students should be able to explore feelings and ideas with the guiding hand of a teacher to help them understand the materials and navigate through their personal feelings.
Thank you, Johnny. So you are arguing that schools, as places of learning, are equipped to guide students through potentially controversial issues that may arise in the classroom. You are also stating that school libraries have the responsibility to provide access to materials that may be uncomfortable to some readers.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you both. We will now look at a specific instance of censorship in a BC school. In 1997, James Chamberlain requested to use 3 books that depicted same-sex parents with his primary students. The Surrey School Board, after receiving complaints from parents about the content of the book, decided in a 4-2 vote to remove the books from the curriculum. Johnny, start us off. Why do you believe the school board crossed the line in this particular instance?
I think that the key point behind this whole ruling was made by the Supreme Court Justice of Canada Beverly McLaughlin when she said, and I quote, "Tolerance is always age-appropriate. Children cannot learn unless they are exposed to views that differ from those they are taught at home." The Chief Justice felt that the rights of same-sex parents had to be respected, and reprimanded the school board for not allowing those parents to be equally represented in the schools. Though it is important for schools to be aware of the needs of their community, decision-makers must keep in mind that they should not be moved to censure for fear of public reaction. In the 76th section of the BC Schools Act we read, "All schools and provincial schools must be conducted on strictly secular and non-sectarian principles, and the highest morality must be inculcated, but no religious dogma or creed is to be taught in a school or provincial school." The courts found that the school board's decision was made due to the sectarian and religious dogma prevalent with some members of the board, and in the community.
Thank you, Johnny. Susie, how was the school board justified in their decision to remove the books from the reading list?
I believe it is important to understand a couple of points when addressing this specific issue. According to the BC School Act, the Ministry of Education holds the power to decide what materials may be used in public school classrooms. The ministry then delegates that same power to the school boards to approve supplementary resources to be used in classrooms. The authority is given to school boards because they are representative of the local populations, and are responsible to the people who they represent. When Mr. Chamberlain, who taught a kindergarten grade 1 split class, requested to use these 3 books, he did so with the understanding that these books were controversial in nature, and that many of the families in Surrey, due to religious opinions, would object based on their personal views on the morality of same-sex relationships. The Surrey School Board understood this controversy and determined that the students need not be exposed to ideas that contradict their parents' beliefs at such a young age, and that the chosen books were not necessary to fulfill the learning outcomes set out by the ministry. I concur with the appellate court who ruled that the decision to deny the books fell within the board's jurisdiction set out by the School Act, which has been ratified by our democratic institutions.
Thank you, Susie. This is proving to be a complicated issue between a parent's right to decide their child's education, and the right for that child to have access to information. As Johnny mentioned, this case was finally heard by the Supreme Court of Canada, who determined that, in this particular case, Chief Justice McLaughlin conceded that teachers are in a position of authority among students, and that, and I quote, "Teachers occupy positions of trust and confidence, and exert considerable influence over their students as a result of their positions. The conduct of a teacher bears directly upon the community's perception of the ability of the teacher to fulfill such a position of trust and influence, and upon the community's perception of the ability of the teacher to fulfill such a position of trust and influence, and upon the community's confidence in the public school system as a whole, which lends credence to the school board's hesitance to allow the use of the books in consideration of their community." However, the justice concluded that the board's decision to act primarily on the opinions of their community, which were driven by sectarian opinions, directly contravened the School Act, and therefore the decision had to be quashed. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but we look forward to our next debate on the validity of teaching media as a standalone course, as opposed to integrating it into the curriculum. Thank you all for coming, and a big thank you to both Johnny and Sally for taking time to present their opinions in this controversial issue.